Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I am Arjun Chaudhary. Here are the top stories we're tracking for you on Thursday, the 29th of October. Top Lashkar operative shot dead by Indian forces in Jammu and Kashmir. India announces $10 billion credit line to Africa. And Bidhya Devi Bhandari elected as first woman president of Nepal. And now for all the details. Indian security forces have killed a top commander of the LashkareToiba in an operation late on Wednesday. The dreaded terrorist was the mastermind behind a number of attacks in the Kashmir Valley.
Jammu and Kashmir police confirmed on Thursday that the operational chief of LashkareToiba, Abu Qasim, was killed in an encounter. The army and police launched a joint operation in Bandipora area after they received information about his presence in the region. The 30-year-old Qasim, a Pakistani national, was operating in the valley for the last 6 years and was one of the most wanted commanders. Qasim was the alleged mastermind of attack on an Indian paramilitary convoy in August, in which 2 soldiers were killed and 14 others injured. One of the attackers, a Pakistani terrorist, Nawed alias Usman Khan, was captured alive by Indian authorities following the attack. The Indian government said the killing of Qasim was a big success in its anti-terrorism operations.
Certainly this is an achievement for which the entire nation feels proud of. And you must appreciate that during the last 18 months, ever since the present government has been in place, you must have witnessed a decisive crusade against terrorism, which lives up to the present government's commitment for zero tolerance against terrorism.
Security experts said Qasim's killing would weaken the operations of LET in Kashmir.
Today's operation, where he has been neutralized, to my mind, would significantly degrade the capacity of the LET in Jammu and Kashmir.
The operation came after the Indian troops stepped up vigil in the valley ahead of the approaching winters. Over the years, major militant outfits like the LET try to infiltrate more foot soldiers into India from across the border before the harsh Himalayan winter sets in.
India has announced a credit line of $10 billion to Africa, in addition to the ongoing credit program. The announcement was made by Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the 3rd India-Africa Forum Summit in the Indian capital, New Delhi.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed leaders of African nations at the 4th and final day of the India-Africa Forum Summit on Thursday. Modi called for greater ties between India and Africa, which he said were 2 bright spots of hope and opportunities in the global economy. He also announced additional credit and grant assistance for various development projects.
To add strength to our partnership, India will offer concessional credit of $10 billion over the next 5 years. We will also offer a grant assistance of $600 million. This will include an India-Africa Development Fund of $100 million and an India-Africa Health Fund of $10 million.
Prime Minister Modi also pitched for reforms in the UN Security Council, calling for a fair representation of all countries.
Our institution cannot be representative of our world if they do not give voice to Africa, which is more than a quarter of UN members, or the world's largest democracy with 1/6 of humanity. That is why India and Africa must speak in one voice for reform of the United Nations, including its Security Council.
The 3rd India-Africa Forum Summit is aimed at bolstering ties between the 2 sides in various fields. India's trade with Africa has grown considerably in the last decade and stood at $72 billion in 2014-15. India mainly imports raw materials such as crude oil, gold, raw cotton and precious stones from Africa, which wants to benefit from Indian expertise in high-tech sectors such as IT and telecom equipments.
Meanwhile, normalcy has returned to most parts of Pakistan and Afghanistan, which were hit by a 7.5 magnitude earthquake on Monday. However, search operations for survivors are still continuing in the worst hit regions.
Residents of Pakistan's Swat Valley are trying to put the harrowing experience of deaths and destructions in Monday's devastating quake behind them. Most of the houses and residential areas in the region are damaged either completely or partially, forcing thousands to spend their lives in the open. Even though schools have reopened, classes are being held in the open as the buildings have suffered damages and mild aftershocks continue to hit the region.
परसों जो ज़िलज़िला आ गई, इसके नतीजे में वो क्लासरूम जो पहले से हमें खतरा महसूस करते थे जिनके अंदर बैठना, अब उनके दरारें खुल चुके हैं, मस्जिद खुल चुके हैं. खुदा न करे इसी किस्म का कोई और ज़िलज़िला आ जाए तो मुकम्मल खतरे का शिकार हो सकते हैं.
Students said they were living in fear.
कि ज़िलज़िला का हमें आज भी खौफ है क्योंकि हमारे ये इमारत भी पुरानी हो गई है सर. अंदर उसमें कुछ हैं सर, दरारें आ गई हैं सर.
In neighboring Afghanistan, where nearly 100 people were killed, search operations are still continuing in remote regions. The 7.5 magnitude quake with the epicenter in Hindu Kush mountain ranges was felt in Pakistan, Afghanistan and parts of India. More than 300 people have been confirmed dead in Pakistan and Afghanistan.
Nepal has elected its first female president, Bidhya Devi Bhandari. A women's rights campaigner, Bhandari will succeed Ram Baran Yadav as the new head of the nation.
Nepal's parliamentarians on Wednesday elected first female president Bidhya Devi Bhandari, who was the vice chair of the ruling Communist Party of Nepal. Bhandari, who has been a veteran campaigner for women's rights, became the new head of the nation by defeating Nepali Congress Party leader Kul Bahadur Gurung. She bagged 327 votes as against Gurung's 214 votes. Bhandari would be the nation's second president, a post which is mainly a titular position. The 54-year-old had actively supported and lobbied for the new constitution, which requires that either the president or vice president has to be a woman. She had earlier served as the country's defense minister from 2009 to 2011. Earlier this month, KP Sharma Oli was elected as the new prime minister of the country under the new constitution.
Staying on news from the country, fuel-starved Nepal has got a new lease of life as China has agreed to supply petroleum products to the Himalayan nation. The first tankers carrying oil from China are expected to reach Nepal on Saturday.
Nepal government confirmed on Thursday that the Nepal Oil Corporation and China National United Fuel Corporation have reached a memorandum of understanding to supply fuel to the landlocked country. Beijing has promised gasoline worth $1.3 billion as a grant, beyond which Kathmandu can buy fuel under the agreement. The deal, which comes amid the deepening fuel crisis in Nepal, will end the Indian monopoly in fuel supplies to the country. Nepal, which buys over $1.3 billion of gasoline from India annually, was forced to look for alternative options after the supply line was cut off due to the ongoing protests by the Mahadesi ethnic community. The border blockade for the last 2 months had resulted in an acute fuel crisis in Nepal, almost bringing the country to a standstill. According to reports, Nepal has already sent 40 oil tankers for filling to China, of which at least 12 are expected to return in the next couple of days.
Tourism industry in Gilgit-Baltistan, which holds sublime scenic views and could have been a potential tourist haven, is in a poor shape today. Lack of proper policies and the Iron Curtain rule over the region have caused a major decline in tourist inflow. A report.
A strict visa policy, terrorism threats and lack of a proper tourism policy have led to the collapse of the tourism sector in Gilgit-Baltistan. Despite having a perfect blend of rivers, lakes, mountains, valleys and the distinct culture, the region has stopped attracting tourists due to volatile situation.
हाँ मतलब बढ़ सकता सर ये भी चाहिए मतलब बॉर्डर से सर मेन बॉर्डर से यहाँ से मतलब पहले की तरह उनको वीज़ा मिले सर तो 1 महीने का मतलब वीज़ा मिलता था सर वहाँ से, फिर 3 महीने का वीज़ा गिलगित से उनको एक्सटेंशन होता था। तो उस वक्त यहाँ पे बहुत ही कारोबार अच्छा था सर। जब से ये बंद हो गए हैं तो उसके बाद ये फाइनेंस बहुत ही कम आ रहे हैं सर।
Tourism in Gilgit-Baltistan could have contributed to the economy of the region, benefiting everyone either directly or indirectly, but has been derailed due to the government's neglect. The inflow of foreign tourists has witnessed a huge decline in the last 5-6 years as governments, both at the centre and in the region, have done precious little to improve the infrastructure, letting the lucrative sector die an unnatural death.
It is an achievement to set a Guinness World Record. It is even sweeter to break one's own record. A martial arts expert from Eastern India is said to achieve this feat in a unique way.
Keshav Swen from India's eastern Odisha has set a new record for breaking green coconuts with bare elbow. He attempted to break 132 green coconuts in 60 seconds, out of which 92 cracked. His attempt was cheered by hundreds of enthusiasts in provincial capital Bhubaneswar as he went on to break a line of green coconuts with his elbow. The record will be official once it is verified by the Guinness authorities.
तो स्किल का डेवलपमेंट एक्सरसाइज इसके लिए बहुत कुछ करना पड़ता है, उसके लिए बहुत। तो पहले से क्या तैयारी करना पड़ता है? और पहले से ऐसे ही एक्सरसाइज और प्रैक्टिस, पंचिंग ऐसे सब करना पड़ता है।
Swen, who is a martial arts expert, already has a Guinness World Record of breaking 85 tender coconuts with elbow in 1 minute, which he had created in 2012. He also has Miracles World Records, Universal Records Forum, among others in his kitty.
Well, that's the way it was in South Asia this evening. Before we conclude, the top stories once again. Top Lashkar operative shot dead by Indian forces in Jammu and Kashmir. India announces $10 billion credit line to Africa. And Bidhya Devi Bhandari elected as first woman president of Nepal. Now our viewers can watch the show on SouthAsiaNewsline.com. You can also visit us on Facebook.com/SAsiaNewsline and follow us on Twitter @SAsiaNewsline. That's all in tonight's edition. We'll see you same time tomorrow. Good night.